it's a time period, and it is the technologies that are available. It affects our lives already every day. What we are trying to do as a task force is we're trying to do a country readiness assessment so that we can see how can Namibia and Namibians, all of us, harness the power of those technologies for our own benefit within the country and mitigate, obviously, the negative side effects of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. As she said, I can't decide that I don't want to be part of the 4IR. It's like one of those type of movements that you find yourself in. You don't get to choose whether knock, open up situations. Professor Peters, we stay with you. The theme for this year is 4IR as an enabler of green and inclusive industrialization. What does this mean, and what motivated this theme in particular for this conference and expo, especially in light of the fact that it's the first that we're having of its kind?
Yes, but the first doesn't mean that's why it's green.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things that we looked at is in our Vision 2030, we are saying that Namibia wants to be an industrialized nation by 2030, right?
Yes.
So now we are trying to see how do we get to it? And as I said, one of the underpinnings of 4IR is really the technologies in use in manufacturing and production. So then looking at, this is 4IR, these technologies we want to use to move the nation towards an industrial nation, but we want to do it inclusively. We don't want to do it just for the benefit of a few sectors. We really want to take the entire nation along. So that was the first thing. The second thing is in technology design and development, we so oftentimes see that that it is exclusive design, right? It is designed by, usually it's about 80% white males who is designing the technology. And what happens with that is that they embed their values and their stereotypes, the belief systems, they embed all of that within the technology. Now we are using that technology and we are adopting also that culture that is embedded within those technologies. So in other words, we are very much still just a consumer and an importer of technology, and we're not a producer of technologies. So one of the things that we want with inclusiveness is also to achieve that Namibians, women, men, everybody, that we also become the designers and creators of technology, so that we can sort of, define it for ourselves, and how we use it as well, because we define it for the users as well.
Okay.
So that's the inclusive part. The green part is, I think it's on everybody's lips, at least in many parts of the world or worldwide, that we, that we want to become one of the world's green hydrogen producers, right? So the Green Hydrogen and Green Ammonia Initiative is under the same Harambee Prosperity Plan too, that we have as what we have this 4IR task force. So the two are actually complementary to each other. You cannot build your manufacturing environment and your plants that's envisaged for this green hydrogen economy without your enabling environment, which is the 4IR environment, but we're talking about energy systems. We're talking about, like your network connectivity, your telecommunications, your undersea cables. We have to increase our bandwidth. We have to increase our skills also within these technologies, within AI and big data and robotics, etc., because that's what we will need to move us forward within this green hydrogen economy. So the green was really talking to this green hydrogen, climate change, where we as a nation also want to go. And by the way, you use blockchain actually for green hydrogen to create a verifiable records to say that your energy is green, and then you can claim carbon credits. So that's a bit of money that you can also get. But there's also a concept such as green IT, which is sustainable information technology. And so the green came in with that as well. So green economy, green IT, and then but it must be inclusive.
Okay, nice. I like the fact that it's a holistic approach, if I can call it that.
Yes.
You're not just focusing on let's get it done, let's develop this, but you're looking at how it affects other areas as well, and how you can include those other areas with what it is that you're trying to push forward. Mr. Belotti, we haven't forgotten about you. I needed a prof here to give us clarity on a few things, and she spoke about the inclusivity part, and in it she spoke about us as Namibians, whether men, women, regardless of which industry we're in, being included within the path forward. Now, I want to find out, what is our niche as a country, as Namibia, when it comes to 4IR, that we should take advantage of?
Thank you very much. I think, as we all know, Namibia is a youthful country, and that means that us as senior youth and junior youth, we're really there to spearhead the sort of change that we want to see.
Yeah.
Prof. Peters mentioned earlier that we can't choose to be in a fourth industrial revolution. It's chosen us, and really, to really pinpoint our competitive edge, our niche as a country, it's that we are a youthful country in age, democratically, in size, in numbers. We 2.5 odd million people, and I think with that it gives us a massive advantage to not only partake but to leapfrog. We think of the green hydrogen that's been mentioned, and we think how many thousands of jobs this will create. And really, if we're to talk about Namibia as a private sector-led economy, this is where we're most excited about the opportunities. I think often a question that's been asked is, will we expect job losses? And this is a very serious question which we don't take for granted. No, the answer is no. When we think of 4IR, we think of quality jobs, we think of new jobs, we think of jobs of the future. And with this, we're all collectively very excited about this journey and about this assessment that we've been on for the past 12 months. So really, yes, Namibia as a young country has every advantage to take full advantage of Industry 4.0.
Okay. I stay with you, Mr. Belotti, and I now want to speak to the rate of technological innovations. It's very fast.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, you're talking about 2014. I believe that's when the 4IR.
2015, yeah.
2015. It's when we entered it, if we can call it that. But it had been building up. But since 2015. You look at the fast pace at which certain things have developed. I mean, literally after 6 months, your cell phone feels like it's some gadget from the Stone Age archive period. But yesterday it was the happening, what do you call it, level or series of that particular device. Where are we as a country in terms of our policies and regulations? Because the pace at which is moving could risk us, creating or having too many loopholes that could cause problems for us in the future. And thus, us now wondering, our policies and regulations, are they moving on par?
So that's a very good question, and possibly one that I'd want to divert afterward to my chairperson. But to answer around the speed of technology, you mentioned when you welcomed us that we're experts as we sit here. I'm a humble, proud Namibian man, where my skill set and my passion is in entrepreneurship and really focused on small business.
Yeah.
When we talk of small business, we speak of technological divide.
Yeah.
We think of towns, regions, cities in Namibia, and really, do we have equal opportunity for someone in Okakarara versus someone in Windhoek or Tsumkwe, for example? And really, the speed of technological change, the speed of electrification in Namibia, these are areas that we as a task force have gone through numerous consultations over, and there's a thorough recommendation which will be presented to His Excellency. That's my excuse not to answer the question. But really, the speed of technology a Tamagotchi no longer does the role of a smart device. And years past, a smart device would cost you into the thousands, and now it will cost you some few hundred Namibian dollars. So really, diplomatically, we definitely need to fast track interventions, and I believe that's why His Excellency put together this task force to really do a thorough country assessment. But I'd like to put my chairperson on the spot, especially with regard to policy reform and you know, the real cracks of why we are here as a task force.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor Peters?
So, as you pointed out already, the lightning speed at which technology is advancing. I'm a computer scientist, and sometimes even I cannot keep up with all of the new methods and all of the new, you know, things that are coming out. However, the one big problem that we have is actually that our policy and legislative framework, our laws are not keeping up to pace. But it's not only that it doesn't keep up to pace with the rapid pace of technology, it's also that sometimes they are hampered by many other, you know, things or concerns that we, you know, that we seem to be unable to disentangle. But most certainly, if we look at you know how many years some of those laws are in the making, and we needed them like yesterday, and we keep on talking about them, but it doesn't change. And so we do workarounds, but really if we want to move forward, that is what needs to be addressed urgently. The task force, for instance, has 6 work streams, 6 thematic areas. And one of the thematic areas is particularly on policy and legislation. And this work stream has been working quite closely with the World Economic Forum. By the way, that's where the 4th Industrial Revolution was coined by the chairman of the World Economic Forum. They've been working very closely with the World Economic Forum on you know, developing a 4IR toolkit. And this toolkit is for Namibia, and what it looks at is it puts all of your policies and laws under a magnifying glass and see whether it's an enabler or disabler, and what will it take actually to turn it into an enabler. The other thing that this toolkit also does is, if we're talking about, you know, that we want to sort of make use of these technologies and move it forward, there's a plethora of issues that we're looking at. But one thing that it does is it's looking at what will create that enabling environment, what will be an enabler, what is that 1 or 2 policies that will really move us forward and make it easier for us. Let me stop there, otherwise I'll give you lots of examples.
Okay.
If I may,
yes.
And please, apologies to speak after my chair. When we think of the technologies in Namibia, we think of desktop computers and we think of laptops. I think cell phones, right? However, in the public and private sector space, have we fast-tracked moving away from desktop computers with the pandemic, with remote working? And when we talk about policy reforms, we speak about prioritizing ICT sector, possibly. We speak of prioritizing the culture creative industry. And I think these are some of the recommendations and the work that we have consolidated to ensure that with policy reforms, it's well informed. And I think that's the most simplest example of go work remotely without a laptop. Good luck.
No, that is, I like the way you finished that sentence, as in go work remotely, but good luck. Because I think that is what COVID has also actually just tried to, not tried, it has opened up our eyes to many of the needs and the importance of some of these elements. And I think it's one of the biggest things that is plaguing, because I remember a few days ago, there was talk on one of the media platforms with regards to can we sustain working from home where we are as a country? And it always went back to the gap. It always went back to only some, you know, in disguise, only some of the privileged, only some of the privileged companies, only some of the privileged persons as individuals can afford, because where that person's organization cannot necessarily afford to give them a laptop, they have their own. So what about the next person who's on the ground, the one who doesn't even afford their lifestyle per se? Now they need to try and cough up money to try and sustain a working from home or a hybrid working system. Staying with the whole policy thing, Prof. Peters, you spoke about the work that needs to be done with regards to our policies and regulations, but we would like to know, like, in this current state where we are at, because we are already in the 4IR, you know, it's not, you know, it's not pre-2015 where we were still anticipating. We are in the middle of it, and Mr. Balotti spoke about his niche, if I can call it that, being in the SME sector. And he spoke about the gaps, you know, between even cities, operations in different cities. We would like to know, in the current states where our policies are, do they provide, as little as it might be if they are in place, any protection to the small business from being dominated by the bigger players who are well equipped technologically?
Now I have to throw it to Dino, because that's Dino's area, and actually he's been working on those policies.
Okay.
So that's sort of his domain.
Okay.
Okay.
We're just sort of throwing the questions around here. But I think it's an excellent question, Desire. Small business in Namibia needs to be prioritized. Yeah. And I'm not sitting here today and speaking to the public to say prioritize everything. But as we all acutely aware, small business is the backbone of any thriving economy. I think that's the world over. And when we talk of the divide between small business and large corporate, we actually are quite excited about the upcoming conference on Wednesday, which we haven't spoken to too much. I think that we'll still get there. As I think we'll be holding some of the corporates accountable and asking them, are we doing enough to really empower MSMEs? There's a false narrative around a micro or a small or medium enterprise to think an MSME is someone that is an informal trader. An MSME, as per policy definition, is a company turning over less than 10 million Namibian dollars per annum. And I think this is quite a quality business. So when we talk about the policy sort of framework of small business and how we can support small business, it takes the large corporates, it takes the giants, the old mutuals, the MTCs, let me not start naming. It really takes these large companies, the commercial banks, to say, can we do more to support MSME? We've had numerous conversations with financial services, with manufacturing sector, mining sector. We could go on all day. And really a lot of the conversation is, can we empower small business to ensure job creation is at the forefront? 4IR is not meant to take away Namibian jobs. It's really meant to empower Namibians to have quality jobs. There's a big difference between 1,000 jobs with menial pay and 1,000 quality jobs. I'm not too sure if we're speaking to the policy question, but definitely for all the viewers to turn into the live stream on Wednesday, where we speak to policy, where we speak to large corporates, and we hold them accountable and ask them to keep supporting MSMEs in Namibia.
Prof, I'm staying with the question of employment here, but before I do that, I would actually love to call on our audience to join this conversation. I think, as we stated at the beginning of the show, there is no way we can run away from it. There is no questioning of whether or not I'm allowed or I'm allowing 4IR to, be part of my life. We're in it. When you want to improve or update your phone, or your phone tells you to update me, It's all part of it. So please do join us. We are live streaming on multiple platforms. You can find us on MICT's Facebook platform, that is Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That's on Facebook. You can find us on our YouTube platform as well, that is MICT Namibia. And you can call us. Our call in line here is 061, that's the area code, 400-397, 400-397. You can drop us your comments on our platforms, you can ask your questions on our platforms, or you can call us in and give us your opinion if you have any, your questions. We can pose them to the panelists for you. Getting back, while we wait for you to get in touch with us, Prof. Peters, we would like to know, how can the 4IR contribute to solving the high unemployment rate in the country? How can you convince the man on the street that 4IR will not take away your job, but rather bring more opportunities?
So with the high unemployment rate, one has to look at, of course, what are the factors in causing the high unemployment rate, right? Both from the job creator, job availability perspective, but also from the person on the street seeking for that job. Is it, for instance, a skills mismatch? Do the people coming from university not have the right skill set that the employers are looking for? Where are the employers then getting those people, or is it an oversupply? So we have to see, you know, what are those factors that determine it. However, when you look at how can technology come into play to solve that, we were talking about the MSMEs right now. So if they start, for instance, using very simple technological solutions to advertise their businesses digitally, for instance, to improve some of their processes using the technologies available, then that already will give them a little bit more yield, right? That, for instance, can create another job for another person. When they come out of the schools and universities, etc., they can also start creating their own jobs. Like we say, the world is really our oyster. That means that we can sell literally anywhere that we want to in the world. You can sell online to just about everywhere. Now, especially if you're making digital goods, like Dino was referring to the culture creative industry. You know, musicians, also the tech makers, you know, those who are making apps, mobile apps, etc. They can sell it, you know, on platforms such as Google Play, they can sell it on YouTube, etc., and they can generate money. Now okay, so there is a problem as far as cashing out that money in Namibia, which is one of the big hurdle blocks that we've identified that needs to be addressed. However, this is possible, that they can do this. One of the other things is also that we should be able to sort of use technology to problem solve our own problems within that space. Imagine a young person coming out, you know, and right now it's actually happening in Namibia as well, taking an online course, which is for free most of the time. What they need though is they need gadgets, and of course they need airtime most of the time, and taking a course online and then creating their own goods or products or applications or whatever it is that they are creating a job for themselves, which means that, you know, it's one less person on the street who is without a job. The next one is, as we're building up, you know, remember that we spoke about, you know, towards an industrialized nation by 2030, and we are saying that, you know, with the new initiatives in green hydrogen, there's an expectancy of X amount of jobs being created, like the 18,000 of jobs for Namibians who will be created by 2024 according to the preferred bidder hyphen. Now, where are they going to find those people? Because they are saying that 90% of them have to be Namibians, right? But so they have to be upskilled and reskilled. They're not going to drop out of the air or so. It has to be the persons who are on the street unemployed right now. that we have to upskill and reskill. And the same thing with 4IR technologies. If we start introducing technologies within certain sectors, more within retail because it's already there, but we introduce more of it, then it means that we will need a lot more people to sort of sustain those type of solutions.
Okay. There is something that actually triggered a question here in your response there. I'll take you back a bit. You spoke about the struggle of Namibians who are creating tech makers, you call them,
Yes.
to cash out. Can you maybe just give us an idea of what it is that you're referring to when you speak about that? What is being done to try and solve that, and whom do these consultations have to be made with to try and, find a solution to this problem?
Yeah, so I would have really wanted to invite everybody to participate in the conference tomorrow,
Okay.
so that they can come and, really put their questions there.
Yeah.
But I'll go with it like this. What we had done, actually, it's a problem that at least I was aware of for a while,
Yeah.
because I've been working with young with young tech makers who who develop their own apps, etc., and sell them online as well.
Yeah.
When we started with the stakeholder engagements, we've engaged, I think, over 300 individuals and organizations thus far for this consultation on the 4IR readiness assessment. And when we had many of the stakeholders in the room, but especially from the culture creative industry, that was the cry that came, that number one, they generate the money online, with whatever they're selling online. The money is in a PayPal account, for instance, but they are unable to cash it out in Namibia because there's no provision, even though we have the same banks, operating in South Africa and operating in Namibia, they are unable to cash out the money. So what happens is that they usually travel to South Africa, they open a bank account in South Africa, and then they cash out the money. And then they travel back. When we had COVID, for those past 2 years that we had the lockdowns, one of the hardest hit sectors, well, tourism was also very hard hit.
Yeah.
But, for the ordinary person on the street who doesn't have a fallback, that was quite hard because it meant that you can have $2,000 in your account, in your PayPal account of what you're generating, but you are unable to access it. And I think that was very harsh, and it is still very harsh. What we had done as a task force, we had started to engage, brought in the players within that sector, in that financial sector, and we had asked, how do we solve this problem? Because this is really a problem for our ordinary person on the street. We're talking about create your own jobs, but look, we're creating our own jobs, but we can't cash it out.
Yeah.
So we brought all of them into the rooms, but hitherto we have not had the success that we had hoped for, gotten that solution. But this is one of the biggest things that we have in our, in our pain points for the country to move forward that needs to be resolved. And that dialogue will certainly be taken up again during this conference because it will feature in the work stream on this. And most certainly once we are finalizing the country assessment report by the 30th of June, it is due to His Excellency the President, then we should most definitely have recommendations on solving that one particularly.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, and I'm sure the other task force members, we would have solved it as a matter of priority, during this time that we were on the task force, because it is something that is urgent.
It's as we said also that COVID definitely did show face of the thorns that we find in our operations, in our societies, with regards to how technology, as good as it is, could also, have its loopholes where it creates difficulty for the everyday person to function. And maybe it's a good thing that this conference is happening now, because we can call it immediately after these problems have surfaced, so that we can find ways, or at least try or start to find ways to solve, to ensure that they do not continue to have this negative effect on our people. We have comments on our social media platforms, and one of those is on our Facebook platform, I believe. This is Jeffrey Henderson. Jeffrey is asking, how can I and many other computer science or informatics students best position ourselves to contribute to the fourth industrial revolution within Namibia? Very good question. I believe that ties into the question that I was next going to be asking Mr. Balotti, but before we get there, let's ask the next question. This one comes from Richard Kambinda. Richard is asking, Prof, you touch a bit on gender in tech, but what about religion in tech? With the wider use of QR codes, how can this reality be confronted and normalized as safe for public consumption? Richard Kambinda, he is now moving that inclusivity point to the religious sphere as well, where he wants to understand with the wider use of QR codes, how can this reality be confronted as and normalized, pardon me, as safe for public consumption. I think that is also one of the very disturbing or problematic pointers here, where people are not sure whether these technological advancements are actually safe for humans. So we start with the first question that we had that spoke to the positioning of a lot of these informatic students and computer science students, how they can best position themselves, and that is to allow them to take advantage. And this also ties into what I was going to ask, which is what are some of the anticipated technological trends that will impact the Namibian workforce in the next, let's say, 5 years or so? Because that then speaks into what Mr. Henderson is asking, how do we best position ourselves to take advantage of these trends? Prof?
Yeah. So for computer science and informatics students, right now when you come out of university, you have a specific skill set that you were taught. However, when you venture into the work, we've just talked about how fast the technological advances are. You might find yourself that you are confronted with a new reality, in that you're walking into a company and you find that your knowledge might be slightly outdated. So the best thing that I can say is, number one, keep yourself constantly updated. And again, there are many, many online courses that you can take. Number two, being a computer science or an informatics student is already, put you already in the category of those are the ones that we want to help us create the technologies, help us to, build new infrastructures and new systems. So keep your knowledge up to date and reskill if you have to. The other thing for a computer science or informatics student of today is also that you can really become a job creator, because you can develop technologies that you can help solve problems within the countries. There are many, many problems that can be solved. I can give you an example that we are incubating some students at the University of Namibia who are developing AI solutions for the agricultural sector, because it's very manual based, but those students came up with their own very unique ideas of how to solve problems. Some of them even are what you call weekend farmers. Their parents have farms and they're trying to solve particular problems. So I believe that we do have a market for those type of products or technologies, if we can just have our own sort of student population, current student population and past in computer science and informatics, take up these challenges. If you come to the Expo, Jeffrey, then please do pay a visit to some of the stalls. There is a stall for NUST and UNAM, but except for the stalls for NUST and UNAM, there are some exhibition stalls of students who were like you, computer science and informatics students, who had actually set up their own companies, and they are now selling the most innovative solutions out there to the companies. So please do come around. It is free to the public tomorrow from 10 o'clock until 5 o'clock. So it's personal invitation from me to you. Then on Richard Kabinda, I believe.
Yes.
On that question, if I can just get a little bit more clarity on the religion part and how and the QR code and the safety aspect, because I don't want to start speaking about privacy and access to information when I don't have a little bit more context around that.
Okay. So, Mr. Kabinda, maybe you can just, get or send us a bit of clarification within our comments so that we can best pose or answer the question that you have there. Mr. Bellotti, reskilling, niche of a country, gaps that we have, and so forth. You are within the business sector. We want to find out, as a country within the 4IR, how are we working with others in the region? What efforts are we making as a country to work with other counterparts, for example, our SADC region, to try and collaborate with these other countries, to capitalize on each other's technological strengths, to provide digital skills to those that do not have at the regional level back home? Because you did mention, for example, what is available to somebody in Windhoek might not be available to somebody in Okakarara. And likewise, what is available in Botswana might not be available in Lesotho. So, and here I'm also keeping in mind the MSMEs, because as you said, these are the backbones, and we have to be honest about that. How are we trying to make sure that we use all and harness all our skills, especially on our continent, to try and kind of build each other up within this 4IR?
Yeah. It's a loaded question, and, and I'd like to start with sharing really some of the great work that's being undertaken by many Namibian institutions, offices, ministries, agencies, private sector. And to just share a couple, I think of Ministry of Industrialization and Trade, we think of Namibia Trade Forum, we think of Startup Namibia, we think of my employer, the NIPDB, to name but a few. And the work that's being championed by these organizations is really information dissemination, access to markets, access to finance, access to opportunities. You're very right. Namibia is not on an island. We need our African brothers and sisters. We think of the work in South Africa through the Small Business Agency, or SEDA, Small Enterprise Development Agency, or SIFA, Small Enterprise Financing Agency. And there's already a number of collaborations that are taking place to ensure that we can quickly provide our Namibian small businesses, medium, large enterprises with the same opportunity. When we really dig deep into how we can stay interconnected, if I have to fast or backtrack to when I was a scholar, fortunately Prof. Peters wasn't my lecturer, or she might have failed me. We didn't have mobile devices that were interconnected. Didn't have WhatsApp, we didn't have social media, etc. We had SMSs that cost us per character. So we try and short code those SMSs. And when we think of the opportunities now to be in a virtual meeting taking place in London or in Accra or wherever it may be, we did not have those opportunities 10, 15 years ago. It was spoken about Industry 4.0 in 2015. Scholars and academics are already talking about Industry 5.0. And the speed of technological change, as you mentioned, in a few years' time, we might not even have driving vehicles on the road. We might have flying vehicles, and we laugh at it, but the speed of change is so quick that it will no longer take 10, 15 years to reach Industry 5, Industry 6. And really, for the layman and for people like myself that are not pure academics, it's really a question of how do we play a role in this? because our parents and our ancestors would never have imagined the opportunities that are before us today. Never. As I sit here, I'm wondering if the viewers that are turned in know about green screens, and maybe not to delve into that, but it's technology.
Yeah.
And again, I think the argument or what I'm trying to say is how we benchmark against SADC countries, how we benchmark internationally. As Prof. Peters alluded to, the opportunity to go online and to upskill and reskill yourself, those options are limitless. And I think it's on us as Namibians to really tie into that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to give an example of the fast pace of technologies. So recently I went to San Francisco, and when I had to board the plane, I was informed that I didn't need to show my passport. All that I needed to do was look at a camera and walk through. That was my boarding pass, my face. I was being, using facial recognition, I was being scanned, and that is actually how I accessed the plane. Now, if we think that that is something that is, sort of pie in the sky, maybe it will never come to Namibia because it now sounds so foreign. But if you really think that on Meta, or your Meta page, on your Facebook page right now, that you have actually facial recognition technology in the background running, because that is how your photos are being tagged. When you, for instance, get a notification from Facebook that you might be appearing in a photo elsewhere, that's actually what it's using. It's learning what your face looks like. And so for me, it was simply comparing whatever information they had on my visa and on my passport photo, and they compared it to my facial features, and that's how I could just walk through.
Wow.
Desire, and I'm not sure if I'm cutting into your time. I need to also mention, and maybe just in addition to my chair, in Namibia, private sector speak about leveraging big data.
Yes.
I'm going to use financial services as a simple example. A bank, whichever color that bank may be, and they have a lot of data. And how they use artificial intelligence to tell us as consumers what we need is how you leverage data. And we think of social media, I think most of us are aware of that. The pages that keep popping up, for some or other reason, they know us better than we know ourselves. And really, when we talk of a private sector-led economy like Namibia, it's how do we leverage big data to inform us of what we need and how we can innovate and do things better. I think that's where I think of 4IR and how we as Namibians can use that to our advantage. The tourism sector. Do you provide a quotation in handwriting and fax it to someone in Germany? Or do we give them a QR code and tell them scan the QR code and it shows you are in the bush with a rhino? And that's the innovation that we're speaking of in many sectors. I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you. I'm actually glad that you did add that, because it was going to be one of my questions before we round off the show, because we are nearing the end of our show. We've got about a minute, and this minute we would like to ask Prof. Peters to give us the details. You spoke about the 4IR conference and Expo starting tomorrow. Tomorrow is open to the public from 8, or is it 9 to 5? 10 to 5, pardon me. So this is the time that I would actually love for you to just give the nation the information. Where's the venue, the exact dates, how can members participate, and what are the lined up activities? And unfortunately, I only have a minute to spare.
I have to be very fast. Okay.
Yes.
So tomorrow between 10 and 5 at the Safari Conference Center, we have an expo that is open to the public, so everybody can come. We have more than 20 exhibitors there showcasing 4IR technologies or solutions or products. And then we have and they will be having presentations throughout the day on the products and the technologies that they are exhibiting. Then we will also have in the evening a cocktail opening of the expo at about 5 o'clock. Unfortunately, that's by invite only for exhibitors and sponsors. And talking about sponsors, we had raised about 1.3.
No. Nope. 1.95.
Oh,
Ah.
Dino, his figures just keeps on running up. Dino is heading the sponsorship
Okay.
committee, that's why. Okay, a few hours ago it was 1.3, now it's 1.95
Wow.
million. So nonetheless, so people had really been coming on board for this.
Yeah.
Then tomorrow morning, starting at 9 o'clock, it is the conference. Unfortunately, it's also by invitation, only in person. However, it is open to the public because we are live streaming on MICT's sites, on the presidency, etc. You can pick it up on social media, and you can participate because that's what we want. We want you, the public, to come and give us questions, etc. And the reason why we can't have so many people there at the conference venue is because of COVID as well.
Okay.
But the president will be he is the chair of the conference, so he will be chairing the conference. We have 6 thematic areas, and those 6 thematic areas will all be presenting with panelists and with opportunity for interaction. And please look for the program on the website of the Office of the President. Thank you.
I hope you caught all of that, and I do hope that you will make the time to, just pop in at the Safari Conference Center between 10 and 5 tomorrow. That is when it's open to the public, and hopefully we can learn a few things through these various platforms that are being created to try and assist us as a country, especially our youthful selves, to try and play our role in the 4IR and hopefully into the next one. At this point, unfortunately, we have come to the end of our session this afternoon. I will humbly and gratefully say thank you very much to our panelists who availed their time to try and, give us a gist of what it is when we speak about 4IR and what it can do for us as a country. From myself, Shianwa Desire Kahiha, along with my production crew, it's bye-bye. Thank you very much.